Hi, everybody. This is Jean, and I'm at home in my studio. And I told Trisha and Val that I thought it would be fun just to talk about how to pick fabric. I never get tired of picking fabric. And I think about after 50 years of this, I'd be a little bored with it, but I'm not really. But I had a bit of a dry spell picking out fabric because we were so busy with Quilt Show this year and all year long. And I realized, a couple of weeks ago, I need to go look at some of the new fabric and see what I can do with it. And naturally, I go to rice bags. If you haven't done one of these, they are addictive and they're so much fun. And we have a wonderful um, uh, video that, well, I think it's wonderful. 12, no, it was 2,500 people watched it last year. So, and it's on rice bags, and I tell you how to make them and so on. So now I'm going to talk about just picking fabric. And the first thing I usually do is look for a fabric that can launch whatever I want to do. And I'd never worked with any of Giuseppe's fabric, and I thought this was really fun. And I liked it because of the writing. And then I like this little thing too, because I always look for ideas of shapes and things that I might embroidery. So then look at this fabric. I mean, is that perfect? I mean, they're really good friends. You always want to have a couple friends together. And then I picked a little bit deeper value. This was just almost black, so I decided to go a little bit lighter. And it used to be in the old days when I first owned the store, if people couldn't get it exact like this, they would think they failed. And you get things that are in the same mood and they'll be fine. I mean, this fits this pretty well. So here we've got a couple things going. And then I thought, well, I could use magenta for an accent. So here's some magenta. And you notice I'm kind of just putting them out on how much I think I might see in the design, the proportion of what is going to show. And because this is the theme, I'm probably going to use more of it. But I look at this, it's okay. But just by itself, it really needs something. So I kept thinking, well, what can I do? And I tried this lighter lavender, and it was just, that's enough of that purple and lavender. So finally, I got some white. And look what happens with white. All of a sudden, it just comes alive. And so many times people are afraid of contrast. But that value contrast, where these are all medium, medium dark, and this is definitely a light. So now I'll show you, this is the rice bag not put together. So, I have to turn it around. I want the writing right side up. So I kind of do sections because when you make it, you end up with 4 sides once you pull the strings up tight. So I put little marks where those are. See, here's a little mark. Here was a little one. So anyway, now I'm going to do some embroidery with my embroidery thread. But see this little guy? I'm going to copy it over here. And then I just kind of made up one here. And I found ideas. There's kind of crisscross X's. So I can put some X's here. And then I just put some straight lines because these are just straight lines. So I will do that embroidery. And then I will do similar things here and down here. So you never know where your clues are going to come from in design. And, when I first picked up this fabric, I didn't see all those details. I just like the overall feel of it. And there's times that I will start with a theme fabric and then not even use it, just use the colors that were in it. So you never know what's going to happen. I'm going to show you some more now, some other ideas. So I'll move that. Then the next thing, I was just loving this fabric. This is from Anna Maria. It's a division of Anna Maria Horner, and it's a division of Northcott Textiles. But these are wovens. Aren't those the sweetest things? So obviously I was really taken with both of those. So then I thought, okay, I'm going to work with this. What am I going to do? And I went over to Cave Facet, and look at this yummy piece. And I thought that could play well together. This is yellow, this is yellow-green. So they aren't matchy-matchy, but they have a lot in common because they're both bright, intense colors. Then here's another one of Anna's wovens. It's pretty dull by itself when you look at it just with that, but sometimes you need a little bit of a background feeling, so I thought it's a maybe. Then this is so busy, and when I chop it up, no two pieces are going to be exactly the same, so it really gives you a lot of different palettes and possibilities. And the magenta in this was kind of calling me, and I really like, this is the Ruby Star Speckles, and I use it as a basic a lot because it's got a little bit of activity, but it doesn't have a strong theme. So, I'll use a little bit of that. And then I thought this blue, see, it kind of plays with that. And over here, it's not exactly, but you can tell I don't care about not exactly. When I got home, I thought, oh, I need something more. So I found this blue-green. And when it's next to this, it really gets lost. But when it is around these guys, and they're all pretty good friends here, it works just fine. And then I grabbed some scrap green, that brighter green. So this is what I'm ending up with. And, a lot of this is showing right now. But once I am ready to do my project, things are all going to show more like that. That's the proportion. And I find it's really hard for me with my eye to subtract amounts of what I'm seeing. Like it's only going to be a little amount. When I see this great big piece of yellow, it feels like too much. So here's what I ended up with. Not real original, but the log cabin's my very, very favorite block. So I made 4 log cabins. And these happen to be the little tabs that go on the top of the bag to pull the strings through. But each one is different, but they all have the yellow center. So that's what I kept as kind of a unifying part of the design. And you can see that the yellow did end up pretty large in here, but then smaller, in some of the other places. And the blue really ended up being okay. I debated with it, and when it got time to figure out what I could put up here, I think the blue worked really well. So you will see this all finished sometime, and when you look at it, it'll look kind of, like that. So there's a couple things, and I kind of got carried away. I hadn't done this for so long. I think I was having withdrawal or something. So I really love the Marsha Dursey fabrics, and I've known her since the very beginning when she started as a designer. I was one of her very first customers. And this happens to be a wider backing fabric, but I got myself a half yard of it because I can see me using it and piecing a lot, not just for a backing. So here we are picking something to go with this, which is quite different than what you just saw. And I thought, well, I probably should have a gold. And this was the closest I could get, but I was seduced a little bit at the Stitching Post. I loved this thing, so I just had to get it anyway. But can you see that it's a really yellow green? It's not a gold, but when you see it on the bolt, it looks pretty goldish. But I don't like it as well with this, so I don't think it would work as well. But I had to have some anyway, so this goes into my stash. And I picked the gold, and then I knew I was going to use a solid black of some kind, and this happens to be a little piece of black linen. And then these little things were just left over from something I made, and I did end up using those. And then this is a chalk and charcoal. And one of the things that I love about chalk and charcoal is that there's a variety of values within a single print, and that little grid that covers the whole thing really gives it a nice textural feeling. And I thought the textural feeling, which is grid-like, I mean, here you've got a grid, not that everybody's going to notice that, but that's a subtle form of repetition. So I'll show you what I did with this. So here we go. And see these teeny little guys that I had left over from something? They ended up in my checkerboard, along with the chalk and charcoal and the gold. And then this is a white linen, and I wasn't sure if it was too white or not, and I decided just to go ahead and put it in. I did find in my scraps a nice little piece of beige, but I'm just going to leave the white in because when you fold this up and you see parts of it, I think that bit of white is okay. But these are the things, it might not be okay with you, but it's up to you. It's going to be your project. And you can see I have traced on a grid like this here and here, and I'm going to embroider that. Then I'm going to stitch around the square and stitch around these guys. And then I'll probably stitch a little something in these whites just to make them not so screaming white. And actually, I just noticed this, there is a teeny bit of true white in the middle of some of these little dots. See, here's another one that has true white. So I guess I was okay picking white after all. Now, because I like Marcia Dursey so much, I bought some of this, which is, a printed design. And I thought it was really interesting, but it's a little bit on the dull side. And I thought, I'm going to challenge myself and see what I can figure out what to do with this. And I looked in her collection, and she had this black with, the little dots and in some of the gray colors. And then this is kind of a wild card, but I thought if I could focus in on just the black part, it might work, but I wasn't sure. But I thought, well, I know I would like to have some of that. So I got some of that. Then I started thinking about neutrals. And there's quite a bit of gray in here. And like this is really smoky gray, which this matches really good, but very much of it doesn't do much for me. But I might need a teeny, so we'll just wait and see. And then trying to find a neutral, you know, see how cool this one is, and this feels pretty cool. But when I started working on the project, I knew it needed something that could work off of this rust or this maroon. And so I went to another one of Anna's fabrics, this little thing. And you can, that's the wrong side where all of the knots show. And then the right side, you just get these little kind of diamond things. And you know, this much of it I don't like, but possibly just a little touch of it might be okay. So that's a maybe. And then I just didn't have a deep rust at home, but I had this orangey piece. I thought, well, possibly that could work. And I also didn't have any really deep maroon, so I just went back to my little bit of, I'll just throw magenta in. This is me trying to be brave and solve a problem. Then I thought, you know, there's this nice warm kind of brownie things. And so this is some of the Fabulism, yes. And I thought it might be nice. So, you know, kind of auditioning that. And then I had a little scrap piece of linen that is just a little bit lighter. And I had just a little bit of this black linen left over from something, but I felt like it was the same mood as this kind of print. So here's what I ended up doing. And these are my little scraps that were left over when I was done. And one of the things when you're doing original design and you don't know what you're going to do, I a lot of times will just cut 1.5 inches to a 2-inch wide strip. And I just toss these in a pile. And, you know, here's, you know, some of that piece. It still looks like a lot. Well, and then here is, you know, that. And I thought I had a, oh yeah, I have, here's my 2 little pieces of this. And I also found, this is a leftover Val fabric, and this is all I have left. So I was very, very careful with it, but I think it goes really good here. So that got to be in there. And then you can see I just had some little pieces here. And this is a piece of, it's not even linen. It has a linen-like texture, but it was a polyester or something. And it was left over in my scraps. So I ended up using it too. So here, when you start seeing things like this all messed up, the thing that's great about it is something will touch something else, and you'll say all of a sudden, I never thought of putting those 2 things together. So when I work a lot, I'll cut something and then just put it over in the scraps in a pile. So I end up with these kind of things. But before I tidy up, I look and see if there's any little surprises that might help me with my project. So now I'm going to show you what I have, and I'm so excited about this because I've never done one. In her book, she tells you in the back how to make larger ones, and I've never made a larger one. So here it is. And I think it's going to be really fun. And look how this bit of that rust was really okay. And then just these tidbits of the magenta and the orange, these tiny bits, really help to kind of make the design a little more interesting. So a lot of times what makes that pile of fabric work for you is how you proportion the colors and what you decide to do with it. Um, I needed some sort of kind of background for the whole thing, so I ended up using, this fabric, and um, I like things that are textured, and I think it's going to work out. I haven't done any stitching on this yet, but this is 2 nights of stitching. I have just been going crazy on this and watching football with my husband. So that's all I have for today. But once I get these done, I'm going to Idaho to teach quilting next week to a group in Sun Valley. And one of the things they wanted was a rice bag class. So I have all my samples now. So when I get home, I'll have Tricia take a picture and she can put it up so you can see what I made. And have fun. Have fun choosing fabric. I mean, to me, it's just the best thing ever.